All right, welcome to the Still There podcast, the show where we talk about history's most famous lost treasure. With me today, I have a return guest, Caleb Kolstad.
Yep, good to be here.
Yeah, and you brought someone with you today, yeah?
I did. I brought an expert on Rembrandt. This is Finkel J.
Finkel J, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Yeah, more specifically, I guess, didn't want to include this in there, but did my doctoral dissertation on a very specific painting, the one that's key for today. Storm of the Sea of Galilee was like what I mostly focused on in school.
Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful painting.
Absolutely. And that is the main topic of today. We're talking about the Storm of the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt, yeah?
Rembrandt, actually.
Rembrandt. Okay.
Is it Rembrandt?
It's Rembrandt.
I mean, we are
So
American,
I've heard
of
it
course.
both ways.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would know, but
How do you say his full name? His full name's kind of long.
Long name. I'm American, of course, so I studied a little bit of Dutch, studying him, but the full name is Rembrandt Harmens Zoon van Rijn. It's hard to say.
that's a tongue twister for sure.
Was he
but
just
it's
commonly
Dutch.
known as Rembrandt? Is that how he was referred to?
Honestly, I don't know. We refer to him as Rembrandt, but I'm not sure in his time.
Yeah.
I assume they would have just called him Rembrandt.
Rembrandt. I feel like it's like a sick nickname at the same
is.
time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but what he was from the 17th century, one of the most well-known painters from back in that time.
Yeah, for sure. So Dutch Golden Age, he would have been a part of the Baroque era.
Okay.
Focusing a lot on, there's sort of a famous concept about using light and shadows to highlight certain features of a painting. That's referred to as chiaroscuro.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Yeah.
But really famous for, he wasn't an impressionist, a lot more real, a lot more realist, trying to depict things how they would have looked. But yeah, there's this concept that he used a lot where he would highlight important features of paintings, and he would do that by making those pieces a lot more light, almost like a spotlight, and he would surround that light with shadows and sometimes even dark figures to add, drama and just different layers to the paintings. And that's mostly what he's famous for. But yeah,
That's
Dutch
awesome.
Golden Age.
So doing that style of art, I guess that adds like an emotional depth
Yes,
to
for
the
sure.
paintings for sure.
Which definitely ties into this specific painting.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is
Yeah.
probably one of the most beautiful paintings. And honestly, I'm not even that interested in art. But this painting, when you look at it, whether you're a fan of like art or you study it, I mean, it'll catch your eye. It's beautiful. We've mentioned it a few times, but that is the main topic of today. We're talking about the Storm of the Sea of Galilee.
yeah.
You care to describe it a little bit for
Yeah.
our viewers here?
Yeah, so it's depicting a famous story in the Bible. It's spoken about in the different Gospels, Mark, Luke. And there's a story where they're out, Jesus, his 12 disciples, and in the painting, there's another person. A lot of people,
A special guest, if you will.
a special guest, if you will. Yeah. A lot of people believe that it was a self-portrait of him that he included in there. But yeah, it was done in 1633. It's actually his earliest painting, and it's also his largest painting.
Really?
Just in terms of size, it's really big. But he was depicting the event in the scriptures. Jesus was in a boat on the Sea of Galilee in the middle of a storm, and the story kind of goes along that all of his disciples were freaking out and trying to get the ship to get under control in the midst of the storm, and Jesus just sitting there chill. And in the painting, you can see like the anguish on all of their faces, and they're stressed and trying to pull all these things to get the boat right. And Jesus is just, his face is like
Just
almost
calm.
like he's asleep.
Really?
Yeah. And
Stellar.
Jesus, like we were talking about chiaroscuro, Jesus's face in the painting, it's almost like a little halo around his face, like it's really light, and he's just like perfectly calm.
Sets him
little
apart from the
spotlight.
rest of the scene.
Yeah. But there is a guy right next to Jesus who looks like Rembrandt. And so a lot of people say, why is there another person? And some of the ideas on why he did that were he was trying to highlight like the importance of the story to himself. Anyways, yeah. He's in it. And people have different opinions on why he included himself. Some
That's
people
cool.
say it's selfishness. Some people say
Well,
to mark the importance.
as you can see why I brought him. I mean, this
The
guy
kid
could
knows
talk
everything.
about it. Yeah, he could talk
Gosh.
about this painting forever. And I have
Beautiful
another question for you, but
Yeah.
I do just want to say, how cool is it to paint yourself in your own
Yeah.
painting? I mean,
So
that's
gas.
such a flex, right?
It is,
So
it is. But I think it also, I mean, and I haven't studied Rembrandt as thoroughly as you have, but it might even show like his like spiritual side of his life to
Oh,
like
100%.
paint himself in that. But even like the context of that scene of the storm, like he's sitting in the storm. Do you know like it was his facial expression? Is he kind of like everybody else in there, like blends in, kind of panic while Jesus is
We're
calm?
talking about Rembrandt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
He's kind of like,
it mixed in with the rest of the people, and
so he's not calm like Jesus is.
no,
So showing he's just as scared as everybody else.
Yeah,
Which
he
is
looks
interesting.
worried.
So he's kind of
Yeah.
showing like in that situation, he's still just human, relying on like Jesus in that,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
And-
really cool.
yeah,
Obviously, religion and art has tied together all throughout history. But do you know if he was a religious guy, or do you know? I mean, was this a cultural thing, or was
yeah. So he was a Christian,
okay?
and kind of like I was referencing earlier, this is believed to be the reason why he included himself. Is he was trying to highlight like this story means something to me,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's also a big reason why people believe it was so big, why it was the first thing he chose to paint about, and why he sort of invested a lot into this painting.
Yeah,
That people think it really mattered to him.
sure.
Yeah.
So cool.
And a painting this valuable, being one of his earliest, one of the only seascapes that he ever painted,
Yeah.
had to be stored and protected, which is kind of where the story goes wrong but gets interesting.
Yeah.
So it was moved to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, a well-known museum
Yeah.
with a lot of the famous paintings from Rembrandt, but other famous artists as well, stored there on display for everybody to see. But do you want to walk us through where
Yeah,
this all
this
goes
is
wrong?
where the story gets
This
interesting.
is where things get interesting.
It's funny
This
we
is-
look at you whenever we're going to talk about this.
I
mean,
am known, in the industry, I am known as the heist guy.
So
I'm
that's what we're
just-
talking about. We're talking
Yeah.
about the heist now.
And that's
Okay.
what I love. I've done a lot of research on this heist specifically.
You got nerds and you got cool guys.
Yeah,
right,
okay,
right.
okay.
I brought the backstory, and now I'm gonna come with the cool stuff.
Well, walk us through it.
Yeah. So Isabella Stewart Gardner. She was a painting enthusiast, and she collected many pieces of art from various artists, like you stated, Vermeer, Degas, Rembrandt,
Yeah.
and just a whole museum full that she put on display in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that leads to 1990 on St. Patrick's Day
St.
when
Patty's
things
Day.
went wrong.
1990. It's getting wild.
It's getting wild. Yeah, this
okay.
is
Never
lock
know
in
what's
on
gonna
this.
happen.
Okay.
This is a crazy story. So
I'm there.
2 guys, they disguised themselves as police officers,
Okay.
went to the museum, triggered the alarms, and that's how they gained entry.
So this is after hours.
It was
everything
around midnight. It was
Around midnight, okay.
Yeah, after hours. The only other people there were the security guards. And yeah, they tripped the alarms to get in, pretended to be police officers. When they got to the security guards, this is crazy, but they had fake warrants for the security guards' arrest.
Okay.
And so they went up as police officers, went up to them, said, "We have a warrant for your arrest." Handcuffed the security guards.
So they're probably thinking legit, all right, I need to like abide to these cops here.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they were being cordial, I'm sure. You know, they probably didn't know what was going on, but I mean, what would you do in that position? They
Yeah.
look legitimate, you know, and so they handcuff them, and they go to tie, something around their face, and right before, and I know you're gonna love this, I had to bring this part in, right before they said, "This is a robbery," and then
That's
they tie,
insane.
they
dude.
tie their.
Such
That's
a
out of a
hard phrase.
movie.
It is.
It's
It
just
is.
smoothly like you think
Yeah.
robbery, they're gonna walk in with like a gun and like wave
Right.
it everywhere. These guys literally did it so smooth.
They
Yeah.
had swagger.
A
They
lot
did
of,
for sure.
a lot
had
of thought
swagger.
put into it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so they they tie them up, they take the security guards down to the basement, and then they proceed to just start taking art.
Yeah.
And they took 13 pieces of art.
13
Mhm.
pieces.
Among that was the Storm of the Sea Gallery.
Which is said to be the most common one mentioned when you mention this robbery.
right.
Which
yeah.
this robbery is the most significant art robbery in history.
Yeah, they valued the theft to be around $500 million.
500
yeah.
million.
The
And what's
storm,
the storm?
Yeah, the Storm of Sea Gallery alone is estimated to be between 100 million to 200 million.
Okay.
And that number is honestly probably going up as, you know,
The
that was
longer
in
it's gone.
1990.
The
Yeah.
longer
Yeah.
it's gone, the higher it goes.
For
it's
sure.
crazy.
Well, and then looking deep into the robbery, so after they tied up all the security officers, put them in the basement, they go around and they start in the different rooms of the museum, right?
Yeah.
And something they do, which has kind of puzzled everybody, is they actually slice the paintings out of the frame. They did not take the frame like clean haul. They sliced them out each time, which I would think, okay, they're just trying to save time. You got to keep in mind, at this point, they might have done that, like thinking they had swagger, but they also could have been panicking because they don't know if maybe the security officers caught onto it and tripped an alarm or something to make the real cops show up.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're going through, they don't know how much time they have, so they're slicing out the paintings. But it turns out there's different layers to the canvases. You might even know that more than I do.
Yeah.
So they're like,
Absolutely.
it takes some time to like do that, and it also damages the painting to an extent. So they do that with several of the famous paintings, even small ones that are in some of the smaller frames. There's some sketches from Rembrandt that they took.
And it's funny, they even took like art, obviously, but like a little chalice almost.
Really?
Like, more than just paintings. They were
Just
grabbing stuff.
Swept
and,
it up.
Yeah.
which just seem like they're kind of getting greedy in the moment.
It does
you know
seem
what I
like
mean?
that. Yeah, it does. But
Which, of
I
course, the
guess-
art connoisseurs are like, are you kidding me? They're cutting it.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Well, and that leads to the theories because this, you know, there's theories on why they would have done that, what caused it. This is an unsolved case.
Out of all this time, was it like 24 years?
Yeah.
Still unsolved.
24. Well,
34.
34 years.
34.
Still unsolved.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I'm
1993.
bad at math. You know, I didn't pull this heist. Hang on.
Now they do have the FBI has suspects obviously
Sure.
throughout time, but nothing set in stone. It is still an unsolved case, and that leads to the theories, and that's what I'm interested in. You know,
Yeah.
because so you take this art, right, valued at over $500 million, and what do you do with it?
Yeah.
You know, and so
It's hot. I mean, at that point, you have it.
Yeah.
Everybody in the country is like looking to these pieces now, drawing more attention than what they probably even originally had.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
what's your next step? You know?
Yeah, and so, and this is what I believe personally, but you can't sell that art. It'll get picked up somewhere.
On a normal market.
Yeah, and so this is what I think happened, which is a popular theory out there, that a very wealthy man hired the two to take the art for his personal collection.
Okay.
So private sale, obviously, under the rug. That makes the most sense to me.
Okay.
But you did bring up that they cut out the paintings.
Yes.
And that leads to another interesting theory that their only goal was to damage it.
Yeah.
Seems more unlikely to me because it doesn't, unless they're really art connoisseurs or whatever motive they had, it just seems like they just wanted money.
Exactly.
You know, and it doesn't really make sense to me, but I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think if they wanted to go in and just damage it, it is a theory. I mean, maybe because they're cutting the frames, there could be other better ways to take the art. I feel like they would have gone in with less swagger, less smooth. If I'm just going into damage paintings, I don't care how long it takes me. It's probably not going to take me too long. I would go in more aggressive. They're not going to smoothly like take the guards, knock them out, or anything like that. So I think the way they snuck in there was like proves that they had more of an intent to get it out. You know what I'm saying?
And just like a professionalism like about it.
And they could have damaged them and left them. You know, it's like, why would they take them?
Exactly.
Also, and maybe this is a bad way to think about it, but you have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of art. You got to think payday, right? I mean, I don't know.
Exactly. Which is why, like, you know, when these rich guys get like an itch, they got to have that art. They already got the money. You know what I mean? So these guys who ever robbed them decide that they're going to get the cash. Then they're just getting the cash from the rich guy. They don't care about the art or like all the value of it. And they might not even know how much it's worth. They're just doing the grunt work, you know?
Right.
But this rich guy's paying them so much to get this millions of dollars worth of art, which is insane. But it hasn't come up on the black market. Obviously, the FBI's watched for it. So I think I agree with your theory overall. I think it had to have been a private hire and probably
some.
Is that what you think, Finkelj?
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, that would be my guess.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell. Different famous artworks have different stories and beliefs about what could have happened, but this one makes sense for that.
So my question for you specifically, I'm sure you love this painting. I know you're a big fan of Rembrandt. How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
You know, even them cutting
You
it
seem
out.
attached to this painting.
Whoever cut that is just it's terrible.
Yeah.
It is.
As a
it
connoisseur.
is.
It's oil on canvas,
Mhm.
so when it dries and it's that old, when you're cutting the edges of that, it's not like it's not gonna be a clean cut. There's gonna be
Right.
flakes of paint that are breaking off,
Yeah.
and like
Because it's so fragile from these years.
yeah, and it's so old and oil paint and itself, like it's not gonna separate in a clean line like that,
Mhm.
and so the whole edge of it would be like almost like chipped away sort of on the edges, and
So there's no chance
Just-
we ever
yeah.
get the original painting back in that good of condition as
not
it
how it
was.
was.
No.
Never again. Yeah.
Do you know if it was an original frame or like how does that work? The frame that they put the painting in, is that something that is picked by?
Well, from what I
museum?
understand of the robbery, I don't know much about what frames
Mhm.
the private museum had them in, but I think they just cut around the edge of the frame. So they just cut the canvas.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think something cool that the museum, this showed a lot of the desperation the museum has to get it back. Obviously, when you're thinking of this treasure, all this art, specifically the Storm of the Sea of Galilee, you're thinking, okay, it sounds great to hear the number of a couple $100 million, or even in total of the full haul, $500 million. But there's no way you're getting that profit from it because it's
No.
already stolen.
Yeah.
Something the museum's done shows their desperation, but also shows that they care that it might still be there.
Yeah.
Is they offered a $10 million reward to anyone who can find any leads to this painting.
Mhm.
So it might not be a couple $100 million, but $10 million of honest money
Yeah.
is going to change your life significantly, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Just to add on to that,
Yeah.
I believe that's not normal.
Yeah.
A $10 million payout for helping find these paintings,
it's like
is an-
unheard of.
it's unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very high. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think that they're willing to pay that
Yeah.
much for it. You know?
Well, this painting is like, I mean, there's a reason why it's so expensive.
Right.
Very highly valued. And the other artists, like the caliber of the paintings that they stole in addition to it, it's like they got all these other guys. It's just insane.
It's nothing less. It's like you think, oh, Rembrandt is like the only good painting they had. I mean, when you have
Mhm.
Degas, Vermeers, all of those, it does stack a high price. And obviously, they kind of hide in the shadow of the Storm of the Sea of Galilee. But right now, currently, like in today's time, the museum still operates. And in place of all the paintings stolen is just the empty frames that were cut out, which I think they're really trying to signify that this stuff is still there with hopes of its return. And I don't think they're giving up anytime soon. So I think there's a good chance that it's still there for everybody to find.
We will find
But-
it.
Well, hey, thank you, boys, so much for joining us on the podcast today. Finkel J, Caleb Kolstad, thanks for returning. I hope the story of the Storm of the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt inspires you to find treasure of your own. This has been the Still There podcast.